We got major news. First, everyone was disappointed. Everyone was angry. Then everyone almost seemed a little bit happier. Rafael dos Anjos breaks his foot. Nate Diaz steps in. Would you say that this is almost better in terms of marketing for the fight itself?
It definitely is. It's much easier to market. The sell of this fight does itself. I mean, you've got two guys that are very good at selling fights. Obviously, Conor McGregor is very conscious of it. He's very aware of what he's doing. Whereas Nate Diaz is a typical Diaz brother. He's just himself, and that is marketable because everyone wants to see them be themselves and be honest and outright and aggressive. And he's got a chip on his shoulder about Conor. We saw it in his post-fight interview with Michael Johnson. You can see he's clearly angry at Conor just being himself, and feels like he should have the opportunity to shut him up. Now, in my opinion, I would have liked to have seen this fight at 155 before Conor got a title shot, ideally, because I would have liked to have seen maybe this fight or a Cowboy or an Alvarez or something like that. But obviously, we're all expecting that world title fight, and Conor's been pushing to get that extra shot at the belt. So this almost works out better for Nate Diaz because he can ruin Conor McGregor's party. Yeah. Like, if Conor McGregor loses to Nate Diaz, regardless of whether it's at welterweight or not, you can't justify him getting a shot at lightweight. It just wouldn't be fair. I mean, a lot of people were complaining, given the fact that he stepped straight into the weight class and got a shot. So respect to Conor, because he's risking a lot more than I think people are taking into account. I mean, and Nate Diaz from the opposite side, he wants to spoil his party. He wants to put out his bonfire, and he wants to derail the Conor McGregor freight train. And if he'd have done that coming up to lightweight, Conor could have just gone back down to featherweight and been like, well, this is my weight class, this is a better weight class for me. Yeah. But having come up to prepare for a lightweight title, and then having to move up to welterweight, now there's no denying that this is an even playing field for them. And if Nate Diaz gets the job done, he has stolen all of that thunder. He has shut down the Conor McGregor freight train. And nobody wants that more than Nate Diaz. And that's what makes this fight so interesting, because there's passion on both sides.
And did you catch the press conference yesterday, which was a little reminiscent to an early episode of Jerry Springer?
Well, we're kind of getting that with Conor McGregor now. He's become a bit more of a phenomenon than an athlete. But it's interesting, it doesn't matter what Conor does or what he says. People want to know and want to hear, want to listen. And the Diaz brothers are the same. I've always been a fan of both of them, Nick and Nate. In my opinion, Nate is the more emotional one of the two. And I think in this fight, it kind of plays into Conor's hands a little bit. If he was fighting the Nick Diaz mentality, I think Nick's good at engaging in the psychological warfare, but then pulling out when he realises it's not paying off. Whereas I think you'll see Nate Diaz, there's a bit more of an ego to him, and I think Conor can exploit that. But you can never count out one of the Diaz brothers, because they've got so many tools in the bag, and they can just steal a fight at a second.
So for Vegas odds favor Conor pretty heavily. Would you say that's fair?
I would say it's fair. I mean, you've got to bear in mind he's been in training camp for a world title, and no matter how highly you rate Nate Diaz, it's not a step up from RDA. You know what I mean? It's just not. And I know when Nate Diaz fought Dos Anjos, I mean, he came in overweight. He didn't look himself. He didn't look like he particularly prepared for the fight very well, and he just got eaten up with low kicks. He didn't look himself. So even just that fight comparison alone, obviously it's not a step up for Conor. It's it may be a sidestep. I mean, I'm not saying that Nate Diaz is any worse than RDA necessarily. It's a different fight, but Conor's had the luxury of a training camp, But at the same time, Nate Diaz has had some time off. I think that after that speech that he put forward at the post-fight with the Michael Johnson fight, I think you've got to think every day people are going to be coming up to him in his daily life, in the gym, when he's walking down the street. Oh yeah, you've post-fight speech about Conor McGregor. So he's had Conor McGregor in his head since that fight. I would imagine it would be difficult for him to focus on a different opponent. So it's just worked out perfectly for both guys, really. I just think it's an exciting fight. It's a good introduction to McGregor at a different weight class, and we get to see Nate Diaz, and who don't love watching Nate Diaz fight?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if there's how many genuine fans can say that we don't like the Diaz brothers style.
No.
All right, well, speaking of inciting styles, it seems like we've been talking forever about you getting back in the octagon, but it's not happening. What's going on?
There's just no time, my friend. There's just no time. Honestly, I've not even eaten today. I had a banana for breakfast, and I've been going non-stop. This role as a commentator and an ambassador, as well as obviously all the analytical work I'm doing at the moment, it's just completely consuming all of my time. After this event, I have a short holiday. I've got 2 weeks off in South America, and then I've got 2 weeks in the US, and I'm just going to kind of lay some foundation for what I want to do for the rest of the year. But we have a window of opportunity in summer where we're going to take a bit of a break because we've got obviously the Olympics coming up and a few other things. So the UFC schedule is going to thin out a little bit. That's going to buy me a bit more time. I've already been in contact with the company that I'm going to go to do the testing and stuff. So, I mean, more for anything, more for my peace of mind. I just want to know where I'm at with it. I mean, it's frustrating because I can't get cleared by an American doctor to fight in the octagon for 15 minutes, but I can get cleared by a UK doctor to sail the Atlantic to Rio for a month.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I know what's more challenging. I know that martial arts has been my comfort zone for a long time. I've done it for a long time, and I know the challenges. I could do a training session with a bunch of guys and kind of coast all the way through it. And you know your levels, you know when to change up and change down gears. Whereas, obviously, with the sailing, with the boat race, it was just intense all the time. We're not sleeping, we're not eating properly, we're cold, we're wet, we're hungry, we're tired. If I can get cleared to do that, surely I can get cleared for 15 minutes in the octagon. And if my doctors in the UK clear me, then I just need to go to them with the perspective of, I would like you to look at me with the idea of me getting back into fight. And, still I've got 3 fights on my contract. I'm 33. I'm in no major rush to get through them. Yeah. I can't see me having any more than 3 fights, honestly, because I really feel like I have an important job to do with the analytics and commentating. So, I mean, this is my focus, this is my job now. For my selfish peace of mind, I would just like to have a couple more fights again, just so I can go out on my terms. And obviously, what with all the attention of all the new dynamic strikers in all the divisions, I just kind of want to jump back in for a little while and have a play. I'm not interested in the belt, I'm not interested in the rankings, I don't ever want to be talked about in that bracket again. I'm not interested, because I got distracted from my own martial arts journey, and I would like to finish that on my terms, and that would be ideally three fun fights on the UFC.
All right. Well, you originally talked about wanting to fight Diego Sanchez, but I mean he moved down a weight class. Yeah. I don't know if it's permanent, but it seems he's not really in lightweight anymore. Any particular point about if and when you get back in there that you feel would be ideal?
I think there are a lot of fun fights. I mean, it's difficult to know exactly where I'm going to be falling with regards to weight. I'm a lot lighter than I used to be, so that's obviously going to dictate what opponents I'm going to be looking at. The welterweight division's full of strikers at the moment, and honestly, I'd be happy to step in and fight any of them. I don't know whether it's conscious or not, but I've kind of been looking at the lightweight division more as the weight class I would move towards, because I mean, I am a lot lighter. I'm probably 10 kilos lighter than I was when I was fighting, and I feel like I've still got more weight to lose, and I would be a lot faster. And I'm hitting so much harder than I used to, because I'm not slow anymore. I used to be quick when I was in my early days of my career, when I was walking on the scales at 77 kilos, and I wasn't really cutting a lot of weight. And I could do that at lightweight. I know I could. So then I look around the lightweight, and I think, I mean, Diego Sanchez I want him to retire more than anything. I just want him to step away, I have nothing against him. I've enjoyed his fights in the past. I don't enjoy him so much anymore because it's just hard-headed and it's kind of silly. But it's time for him to step away. But I mean, there are other people. I mean, the one guy that I always look at and think to myself, he's just got one of those faces I'd love to punch. Is KJ Noons. I don't know what it is about him. I had a couple of post-fight interviews backstage at another organisation, and his attitude kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. But then I look at someone who I look up to, like Cowboy, and I think to myself, well, he looks great at whatever weight class he fights at. He always looks relaxed. There's no ego there. He's just there to have a good time, and they're the kind of guys that I would like to compete against. I'm not interested in chasing money or belts or anything like that. I want fights that are going to challenge me as a martial artist, and that not only am I going to enjoy myself, but other people are going to enjoy watching.
If in a bizarre world, a sort of switching things up, that this heart condition didn't keep you away from fighting, and some things went differently, you could very well have been fighting in the UFC at the same time as Conor McGregor was coming up through the ranks. Say he were to decide to dip his feet in lightweight or even higher. Is that a fight that now obviously it's a bit hard to make in terms of rankings and such, but is that a fight that you perhaps would have wanted to take a couple of years ago, and how would you go about beating him?
You know, I'll be honest, if I'd have got the call to fight him next weekend, I'd have cancelled my trip and I'd have got the flight over there. The reality is Conor McGregor's the guy that everyone wants to fight right now, and it's nothing. There's no disrespect there. I mean, I think he's doing amazing things for the sport. You know, he's drawing attention to fighters that would not normally have a lot of attention paid to them, and I think he's doing the divisions a lot of favours. You know, he says he's running the game, and it's kind of true. You know, whatever he touches right now turns to gold, and I mean, just from a martial arts perspective, he moves so well. He's got such good awareness of his body and of his balance and of his range and his reach. He poses a lot of problems for any martial artist, and I think any martial artist that wants to know what they're made of would love a challenge like that, like Conor McGregor. And you know, obviously there's a lot of money behind it as well, and who doesn't like a bit of pocket money to spend on their new home gym or something?
Yeah. Red panty night, as he would say.
There you go.
All right. Well, you mentioned before that you're a lot lighter these days, and some of that probably has to do with your diet.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we spoke in Copenhagen, I was only vegetarian, but I made a full move now to vegan.
Right.
And I started looking at different. Matt Wyman was vegan for his last fight, and it seems like it's getting a bit more to become a trend, a bit more popular. And considering that it's easier to cut weight when you're on that kind of diet, and I think a lot of people are seeing the benefits of it now. They're not seeing as much of a stereotype so that you're malnourished if you don't eat meat. Do you see it as being perhaps a future, or a more popular way of life for mixed martial artists?
I think without a doubt, the old propaganda of you need to eat animal flesh in order to be strong it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you look at look throughout the animal kingdom at different mammals that eat no flesh at all, some of the scariest, strongest animals out there. I mean, look at you've got horses and gorillas, and I mean they're just
elephants.
Exactly. There you go. Monstrous, hulking animals that can generate massive amounts of power, and I don't believe that humans are that different to that. I think we've developed this reliance on animal products that are actually now starting to slowly kill us. You know, I mean, we're seeing rises in all kinds of diseases and ailments that could be traced back to diet. I mean, I'm sure they are. I think let food be thy medicine, as Socrates said. I believe it's true. I know I feel healthier. I know my eyes are lighter, my brain's sharper. And I can eat, and I'm not gaining weight. I mean, it's like to the point where I have to start sitting there and eating peanut butter, and you know what I mean. I have to start bulking my diet with things that people would start cutting out to try and lose weight, and I'm like eating big bowls of rice and stuff just to get calories in my system, because most of what I'm eating is water based. It's nutrients and water, and I'm just absorbing it, and I'm using it as energy. I'm investing it in my training, and when I first took red meat out of my diet, it was night and day the difference. I mean, from waking up in the morning and having a steak the night before and waking up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I've got training, I feel slow and I feel sluggish and my body's not responding and my mind feels kind of cloudy and stuff. And that's because, a part of my body's energy systems is dedicated to digestion of a meal that I ate 12 hours ago. Yeah. I don't want to be wasting time digesting food when I'm focused on Paul Daly trying to hit me in the face. You know what I mean? I want to be sharp. I want to be switched on and as energetic as possible. And I just think that, attitudes are changing. I know fighters are cautious of it. I mean, I know Gray Maynard was vegan for a while and he had a lot of benefits, and he actually started saying to people, oh well, I eat eggs and stuff now, just so he wouldn't get all the negative chat about it. Yeah. And talking of Matt Wyman, I remember that his last fight when Brian Stan was talking about the fact, oh yeah, and he switched to vegetarianism, so you probably notice a difference in his strength. Yeah. I was like, immediately I sent a message to Brian Stan. I'm like, come on, dude, that's not true. That's not right. You can't throw us under the bus like that. And he came back to me and we had a chat, and I kind of put an argument forward for vegan and vegetarian diets, and he accepted it and apologized and has re-educated himself on the subject now. But that is, that mentality has been perpetuated over years and years of bodybuilding magazines, and you need to look massive and be strong and eat all this meat, and it's just not true. It's just not the case, and I think as time progresses, in 20, 30 years time, when people look at us and think, oh well, they figured it out a bit early, and all these meat eaters will be having heart attacks and all kinds of stuff, and people will realise then. Unfortunately, it's probably going to get to that stage before people make the change. Well,
I guess the moral of the story is no one would ask a silverback gorilla, where do you get your protein from, bro?
No, exactly not.
All right. Well, Dan, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
I guess we'll hear you on Saturday.
Yes, you will.